Good morning. It is Monday, the 15th of June 2020. I am Barry Hutchison, aka JD Kirk, and this is episode 15 of Notes from a Scottish Author, my new YouTube/podcast series. I say new, it's now over 2 weeks old, so does that still count as new? Yeah, let's say it's new. It's my new series in which I talk about writing, my fitness challenge, 100-day fitness challenge, and generally living in the Highlands of Scotland. Often, I am being eaten alive by tiny winged insects. Today, though, I'm sitting in my office, mostly because if you've been paying attention over the last couple of days, you may have noticed my eyes looking all red and puffy, as if I'd been crying. I hadn't been crying. I have hay fever, allergies if you're in the US. And it's been pretty bad the last few days. Today, it's so bad that I've had to kind of retreat to this windowless office, and I haven't done my dog walk yet, or any exercise of any kind this morning because I was sneezing constantly. So I'm a bit better now that I'm in here, locked away from the world. I'm getting some writing done today, working on Sidekicks 2 again. But I thought I'd take a little break to do my writing tip for the day. All this week we're doing writing tips. Yesterday we touched on characters, and today I thought I'd go into a little bit more detail about that. So without any further ado, let's get started. So there are two main types of character in every story. There are lots of types of characters in stories, but there are two main types who appear in every story ever written, pretty much. I will explain some possible exceptions in a minute. They are the protagonist and the antagonist. To give them their proper names, we will often call them hero, villain, goody, baddie, whatever, but protagonist and antagonist are their proper terms. The protagonist is the hero of your story. So what is a hero in terms of a story? Yes, it absolutely can be a hero in the traditional sense, Superman, Spider-Man, all that stuff, but a hero is essentially just the person that the story follows. They don't have to have any obvious heroic qualities. It often helps if they do, but they don't have to be heroic in the traditional sense. When I'm talking about creating characters in schools, I give the example of Cinderella, and I ask the kids who is the hero in Cinderella, and inevitably, sadly, they say Prince Charming, because Prince Charming has a sword and a big horse and is handsome and all that stuff. Sometimes they say the fairy godmother, because the fairy godmother has magic and can fly about and do spells, and these are both incorrect. The hero of the Cinderella story, there's a clue in the title actually, Cinderella. The hero of Cinderella is Cinderella, and she has no superpowers. She has no fancy sword. All she has is a scabby dress and a brush. But she is the person we most care about in the Cinderella story. She is the person the story follows, and we want to see her get what she wants. And that's the important part. As I mentioned yesterday, when you're creating your characters, it's great to know who they are, what they like, what they do, all that stuff. But what's most important is to know what they want, because what they want is what drives your story on. In a detective novel, for example, some of my JD Kirk books, DCI Jack Logan wants to find who the killer is. And the killer, the antagonist of the story, wants the opposite of that. The killer does not want to be caught, does not want to be found. So on one hand, you have the protagonist whose driving goal is to find this killer, and you have the antagonist whose driving goal is not to be found. And that is where the conflict comes from. Obviously, there are lots of other characters around. There are red herrings, there are the rest of the supporting cast in terms of the police team, but at its core, a detective story is a detective who wants to catch a killer and a killer who doesn't want to be caught. And as I say, that's what drives the conflict. In my Space Team books, Cal Carver is the hero. The Space Team are they're a team, hence the name, and they're all in some form or another protagonists of the story, but the main protagonist of the whole series is Cal Carver. And what he wants varies in each book, but Cal essentially wants to have adventure and fun, but at his core, he wants everyone to be happy, and he wants everyone to be nice to each other, and he doesn't want people to be killed or enslaved or whatever it may be. At his core, he is a good guy. He's incredibly annoying, but at his core, he is a good, fair, just guy who wants everybody, human and alien and robot alike, to be treated fairly. So in book 1, for example, Cal, or the villain, wants to commit a kind of space genocide and rule the galaxy, and Cal does not want that, because that goes against Cal's kind of main characteristics of fairness and justice and all that stuff. So the conflict there comes from that. But that conflict is what's important. A hero who wants one thing, a villain who wants the exact opposite. And that's where the conflict in a story comes from. That's what drives the plot. That's where character creates the plot of the story. And I said there are 2 main types of character in every story, a protagonist and an antagonist. The hero is usually a person, a character of some kind. The antagonist, the villain, doesn't necessarily have to be. So in the film, I think it was Volcano, was it? Pierce Brosnan trying to get somewhere, trying to do something, but the volcano itself was the antagonist of that piece. The volcano was what got in the way. And films about giant storm, someone needs to get from A to B, but there's a giant storm in the way. The antagonist of that is the storm. It is not an individual, it is the storm, and that's the bad guy of the piece. So the antagonist doesn't have to be a human being. It doesn't have to be a sentient thing even. It can be a force of nature. It is whatever stops the hero achieving their goal, getting what they want. And that's why the stronger you can make your hero's goal, the more drama you can get out of your story. So a hero who wants a nice cup of tea and a sit down is unlikely to make a really dramatic, interesting story. A hero who wants to get revenge for the death of his wife and children, that's more interesting. We can follow that. We can get invested in that. So having your hero have a strong driving goal, a strong want, makes your story more gripping for the reader. So create compelling characters, think about what they want, and find the conflict there, and that's you at least 70% of the way to creating an interesting story. So that's it for today. Come back tomorrow and I will have another writing tip for you. Just a quick aside, I've decided to start tracking all my calories on the MyFitnessPal app. I wasn't doing that for the first little while because I couldn't be bothered. It's quite a lot of hassle scanning stuff, entering things, but I've decided that I'm going to do that for the rest of the 100-day challenge to give me the best possible chance at losing weight and getting in shape. I'm still doing lots of walking and all that stuff. I'm actually trying to up my exercise a bit, or up the intensity, because I can't devote more time to it. Walking 15,000 steps a day, taking about 2.5 hours out of every day. So I'm actually setting my step goal less, putting it down to about 10,000, but I'm trying to compensate by doing some kind of faster paced, higher energy exercise in between, like cycling, possibly running, punch bag, some weight training. So yeah, trying to up the exercise levels while cutting down on the amount of time I'm spending doing it, so I have more time to write, because obviously that's what pays the bills. So yeah, so I'm tracking the calories, doing more exercise, and hopefully when I come to weigh myself at the 20-day mark, which is 5 days from now, I will notice a difference. Time will tell. Thanks for listening. See you tomorrow.